This is Heidi Sullivan with Penn State Grad Program in Organizational Development and Change. And today I am interviewing Brianna Anderson, representing our small group for our 585 class. And Brianna is an organization effectiveness lead consultant for Kaiser Permanente and has served in that role for the last 3 years. And so first, let me just say thank you, Brianna, for being available today.
Very happy to be here, Heidi.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with our questions, and we have different sections, but the main focus today is to understand from your point of view, Brianna, an experience that you worked with an external consultant and kind of what that overall experience was like and whether you found it effective and what from it you could help us understand in terms of we might be able to learn from and know as we apply or partner with external consultants. So first, let's start with the OD activity that you think is relevant for this discussion. So what is that activity that you're specifically involved in today, Brianna, with Kaiser? And then I just have some brief questions to follow up on that.
Well, over the last 3 years, I've transitioned into a new department in Kaiser, which is called HR Strategy and Management. So I used to be in our national org effectiveness group, but I went to work exclusively on that work as an OE consultant, specifically in change management for our HR service delivery transformation. So that's been my work primarily for the last 3 years, and I do have some experience in working with some external consultants, a couple of them in that work, so I think I can speak to that.
Okay. And what are the goals, if it's still ongoing, of this particular OD effort, and who are the key sponsors or stakeholders with respect to this effort?
The goals of this work are really to make sure that there's 3 main goals that I see in the OD part of this work, and one is leadership alignment on the future of HR service delivery and alignment with other major initiatives. We also have a big system implementation going on. So it's internally within HR, it's with our leadership clients. So leadership alignment is one. HR readiness for change, because HR is my client. So getting ourselves aligned in the right roles and understanding the future state and being prepared for that. And then the third piece is our client readiness. With the clients of HR, do they understand what we're doing? Do they know how to use us as an HR workforce in their lives? So that could be at several levels, leadership levels, managers, and our employees overall.
Okay. And what are there specific OD or change principles, theories, or methods that are specifically being applied in this effort?
There's a couple. One, we've done some culture alignment work with an instrument that we developed in-house based somewhat on the Denison model and the competing values culture work. That's one piece. And then we have used
Hello? Oh. We got disconnected, or maybe you went into a cell zone that didn't have probably effective coverage there. But are you all right? Are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, great.
I don't know where I left off. I was talking about kind of tools and OD interventions.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to our culture alignment work and the competing values culture work, and which was great because it aligned with some leadership dimension that our external consultant had used from Deloitte. And then we're using an organizational change framework that encompasses the organization and talent, org design work, and stakeholder engagement, communications, a little bit of learning. It hasn't been as relevant, and the leadership alignment that I spoke to earlier.
Okay. And then I know you work at Kaiser, and I actually was there for a while too, so I know the culture, although it's probably changed since I was there, maybe. Can you describe within the organization that you support, and I guess Kaiser overall, how is the organization, viewing of this change or adaptation towards this change, and what about the culture is effective in its support or not effective?
Well, I think if you've been at Kaiser, the culture there has been, it's very relationship based, and it's also very decentralized, and that is a little bit of a culture thing, even though that's a structural thing, because the regions, the national functions are very used to doing their own thing, and the organization overall, including HR, is moving much more towards standardization and effectiveness, just given the cost of healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
We operate still very much in silos, so that's been working against us. And if you remember looking at People Pulse results, we don't have a big culture of accountability. So we make these big proclamations that we want to save $60 million. We spend a lot of time developing really great plans, but then it's hard to execute because there's not accountability for actually reaching some of these milestones. So that, especially working with our leaders, that's been very challenging, and they have to really think about having an enterprise mindset, which is a very new idea and concept for leaders and for employees at Kaiser. So that is a big cultural challenge that we're working through right now.
Yes, I can imagine. And then as we kind of transition into this, your kind of evaluation of the external consultants that may be currently or previously partnered with your group to help execute this, could you help us understand what was the process of selecting the external consultant? Was there specific criteria applied, and kind of how, if they were selected, how were they embedded into this transformational change process?
I wasn't actually involved in the choosing of each of these different consultants. We worked with Deloitte and the Hackett Group at various stages of the work. And when we first rolled out this work as more of a combined HR transformation, we had a very large Deloitte team helping us drive that forward. And that was somewhat successful because I think they brought a lot of rigor to the PMO and some of that work and the real focus on the deliverables. So I think that was really good. I think from partnership from an OD or OE standpoint, that was a little bit challenging because they felt proprietary over their work, and they're very regimented in how one person will own one piece of a work stream. Whereas the way we work at KP, and you know this, is that we tend to be very lean teams, and we work across dimensions. So so that was a little bit of a challenge just in that partnership of them thinking, well, why does she or this other internal consultant want to be a part of that work? And we had our major accountability, so because for me, everything's connected. We can't talk about readiness for change without talking about stakeholder engagement, without talking about our communication plan. So that's a little bit challenging just in terms of how they worked, and that's actually how the system, the HCM, the human capital management system implementation, has a two in the box method, and it theoretically should work well, but a lot of times it doesn't, particularly in the OD areas, because we really know our culture and our people,
Right.
and that dual accountability is really, that's tough to pull off.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would work a lot better if the internal person was actually driving the work, and then the consultants could come and bring frameworks and help execute the work.
Right.
When they're not receptive to understanding what's going on and the interconnections and intricacies of the organization, then it just gets to be a tough working relationship.
Yeah, I can imagine. Plus, I was actually on the Permanente side of the house, but I know Permanente and Kaiser, I mean, the folks that are generally in consultancy roles from an internal point of view are generally fairly well credentialed themselves. So I just also kind of wondered, how does that work when external consultants come in, and again, they may be hired for a specific purpose or maybe some targeted area within the overall change effort. But exactly when there's conflict or there's discord between how things should be navigated, who steps in to resolve that, or is that something that just continues to be an ongoing challenge?
I think it's an ongoing challenge. I mean, it really depends on the leader who's managing the account. I think if there's someone who's big on holding them accountable and really understanding how important it is for the KP people to lead the work, then I think that works. But I see it happening a lot, especially in the big systems implementation. We need that technical expertise and that process expertise, and so they're used to really running that show. But on the people side of that, we've got a lot of our own capabilities, the people who really have great relationships and who understand the organization. So
Sure.
I think there's work to do with the right model is. We did do some work on our HR business planning with the Hackett group, and that worked a little bit better. They weren't as polished, I would say, as the Deloitte folks, but they were a little bit more respectful of the client and what they were trying to do with their organization. So I appreciated that from them.
Now, to your knowledge, is Deloitte and Touche and Hackett still embedded as part of the organizational change, or were they just there on the front end? Yeah, just curious.
Deloitte was there in the front end, and then we kind of went on our own, and it stalled out a little bit. We needed some more help, and then we brought in Hackett. But now we're back to being on our own. And then PwC is the vendor that's involved with our big system implementation that has a lot of overlap with my particular work. But on my work, they're pretty much gone right now.
Okay. And then as you are kind of going through this change, or even throughout the effort, how is data being collected to evaluate? Is the effort successful? Are we making appropriate progress? What methods are used in terms of collection or analyzing the data?
That's a really great question, and one that I've been really struggling with lately, because in the beginning of this work, we collected a lot of data. So we had focus groups, we had interviews, we had town halls with surveys after them. So I guess it was about a year and a half ago, we did a whole big package of sharing this data. Some of it we would share as we would go, but there really was not leadership interest in doing anything with the actual data. So it was kind of, unfortunately, data for data's sake.
Oh.
So we really kind of moved away from that, but we're just resurrecting that whole concept of how do we measure if we're successful, because our work is, my particular work is now not really being driven as one holistic program. It's still 13 different HR functions. So we're not collecting as much right now, but we also don't have an overall scorecard for HR.
Right.
So when we have that developed and have our people metrics there, I think we can look at, our engagement scores, look at some of our retention of some of our high performers. So we're not doing that in a really organized way right now, unfortunately.
Okay. So would you say is it also correct, or is there a process in terms of as the data is coming in to share with the stakeholders, or you guys are still kind of in a process of re-engineering how to collect and report out? Okay.
We're going through a refresh right now of all the milestones.
Okay.
So, roadmap has changed quite a bit. So I think once we really solidify again on our roadmap for change, I think we can go back and establish a cadence of monitoring. And some of it we do. We do monitor the feedback from the regions as we are rolling out changes. And we have implementation leads who are in the regions and the national functions. So we do get at least some of their feedback, because what's happened is we don't have a large change team. We have just me.
Oh.
And we went from having a 10-person Deloitte change team with a couple different KP resources on it, including me as one of them, to really just having me as a work stream lead. So I set up the processes and the templates and all of that, and I look across to make all those connections, but really the HR functions and the regions have to own their own change management.
Wow. So are you kind of like a one-man show for your region then, or is that about right? Go ahead.
Well, it's for the whole organization. So I make a joke is, I have to serve as the director, the work stream lead, to come up with strategy, and I do that. But then I also have to run around and fill in the holes. There's a couple areas that really need some focused effort for change. So I just have to triage those and prioritize, and then I'm the team and the leader, and it's really hard to stay on top of all of it.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I can understand why you're so busy. And are they not in the process of evaluating acquisition of additional resources, or they've just decided to take a pause in terms of that for this particular effort?
We are pushing really hard right now for better integration with that large system implementation, because it's the same stakeholders, and they have a very large change and communications team.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out how can we leverage some of their resources. We're capturing a lot of change impacts, so are they, but they're making a lot of assumptions on roles that don't necessarily line up. So we are thinking about it. I mean, we have a couple of different interns or stretch folks who are working with us, but we need people who know how to do the change work and who can plug in and get it done. And we've been successful when we've had that. So I'm hoping we can get some more resources assigned even temporarily, or kind of leverage some of our PwC folks on the system side.
Okay. And then just to reconfirm, you said this change effort has been underway now for about 3 years, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And
a little longer.
Okay, a little over 3 years. Is there an expectation that the change should be, relatively completed by a certain date, or is it kind of just evaluated on an annual basis?
Our target date is 2020. That's our future state that we're driving toward. So there's role changes and structural changes, some savings that we're hoping to get by switching our model. So we still have that goal, but what's been lacking is the actual set in stone milestones and the prioritization of our resources to get there. Because now, again, everybody's driving their their personal HR plan forward, we're not having one unified HR plan, which is what we need and what we're hoping to drive for.
Wow. And so I guess overall, in terms of as you yourself kind of evaluate the process thus far, how would you rate the overall evaluation of this process? Is it meeting from your point of view what was committed to in the beginning, or are there things that you personally are like, wow, if we could just do these three things, it would be so much better? What's your point of view on that?
Well, I think, rating it would be hard. Like, I would give it maybe like a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
The challenge really has been resourcing and prioritization and accountability. So if we can drive and hold our leaders accountable to their milestones, and we can drive integration and one HR method for communicating change, those two things right there would make a huge difference, because then we could share resources and we could have consistency of message. We could have alignment of our leaders, and because we really have to remember that we have to get our HR community aligned to the future state. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's a big focus on our clients, which we need to have, especially for the system and the benefits that we're going to have as part of that system. But our HR folks are going to be the change champions, and they're going through a lot of just challenge in terms of challenging the way that they've worked in the past, their roles. I mean, a lot of that is happening simultaneously. So if we could really drive that integration and prioritize our efforts and share resources, it would be hugely helpful.
Okay. And then in terms of just, again, your own point of view, lesson learned with the partnership or, quasi-partnership with the external consultants that you observed, is there anything that, you just sort of take away from that experience as, it would have been better on the front end if we had this, or, this was something that was really done well, we should, try to replicate that in the future? What are your thoughts on that?
I think when I have seen the Kaiser team, and I was an external consultant before, so I have that point of view as well. Mm-hmm. Experiences when you let the client, in this case Kaiser, be the owner of the work, and then the consulting firm supports that vision and that work, whatever through their tools or just their boots on the ground, that is way more successful than having a dual accountability, two in the box. We need someone to be able to make the calls on this is what we're going to do, and I think that needs to be an internal person, not an external person. Mm-hmm. I just think that our interest from the client side is to make this successful for our organization, and from what I've seen, the priority of a consulting firm is to get more business. Right. And that, I mean, it's really just kind of how it sounds a little cynical, but it's just kind of how I've seen it play out in terms of the core interests of those parties. So if you give the KP people that authority to make the calls on how we're going to approach something and make it clear that they are the last word, then I think it's going to be a lot more successful.
Okay. And in terms of kind of where the change effort is now, is there anything further that you would recommend in terms of really trying to make it more sustainable? I know you talked about effective resource planning. Anything else that comes to mind for you?
And I'd really like, again, to have the unified vision for HR, not basically different major initiatives kind of fighting with each other. Mm-hmm. So I think that would really that would make a huge difference, and just really increasing that accountability to timelines, to commitments, Because I think what's happening is we do a change plan, then we have to change it again because the milestones change. Then we do a different change plan, and then we don't have any more funding, and so it's just we really have to be more judicious, I think, with our funds, and not just spend much money on a campaign around the system. We really need to think about what are we trying to tell our people and our clients, and can we do that in a unified way? It would save money, and it would be much better for our people and our clients.
That's great. And then finally, is there anything else that you think is important for our team to know in terms of observation, evaluation of this OD effort, or is there anything that you think is important to expand on that maybe I didn't ask?
I think that's a good question. I liked where we were going and just in terms of the partnerships with external consultants. I think that's a really important win because they're very expensive. So I think, and it's really good because we can get things done when we have external consultants in. But I think it's really that leadership, accountability, and alignment is really key. I think that's what I would say.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Brianna. I really appreciate your time, making the time to be available and answer these questions for all of us. And thank you so much. And of course, if you have any questions further, feel free to reach out to me. But we really appreciate your time and commitment to this project for us. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Let me know if you go through or the team goes through and you have any questions or follow-up. I'm happy to answer those. Probably via email would be the easiest.
Okay, perfect. That sounds great. Again, thanks so much and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Brianna.
Thanks, Heidi.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.